I'm Pierre, and back again to give you the injury report and waiver wire update for week 11 this time. Starting with Aaron Jones, that's the big one. You saw him kind of limping off the field there and didn't return, so led to a big day by Dillon. What we're hearing is that for Aaron Jones, it's going to be a sprained MCL, and he's had this issue before, actually on both sides, missed a couple of games. The initial thought is that he will miss 2 to 3 weeks. That's definitely a tough blow for somebody who was an RB1 for the most part this season. Now, that means if you had Dillon all along, congratulations. That's why you draft him, because now he's going to be in line for a full workload. If you don't have Dillon, and of course he's probably not around on a lot of waiver wires, the next guy up is somebody that I guarantee you haven't heard of, and that is Patrick Taylor. Undrafted free agent last year, has not played an offensive snap for the Packers until this week when he had to. If you're in a really deep league, then you can take a chance on Taylor. Now he becomes the handcuff to Dillon. If something happens to Dillon, Taylor would be the starting running back in Green Bay. All right, Cordarrelle Patterson is the next I want to talk about. Now, he didn't have a serious injury. He was held out. It's hard to know if he was completely held out of the second half just because of the injury, or it's just because of game script, because the Falcons got completely blown out. It's a high ankle sprain, what we're hearing, possibly mid to low ankle sprain, but we don't know the severity. We haven't heard a lot of details out of Atlanta. If it's not anything serious, even if it's just a mild sprain and not the high ankle type, probably gets off the hook, doesn't miss much time. They play on Thursday this week. So if you are looking at a short turnaround, not a lot of practice time, if the ankle bothers him at all, it could be that Patterson does miss a game. Wayne Gallman saw his season high in carries, 15 carries, 55 yards. It's interesting because, number one, this means that Mike Davis is continually being phased out of the offense. He's just, even in the opportunity where he could have gotten a lot of run, they went to Gallman instead, maybe seeing what he can do down the stretch. So Gallman's an interesting name to scoop up off of waivers. Keep a close eye on Patterson, and we'll see if he's able to play Thursday. Hopefully he is. Dallas Goedert left the game with a concussion. We know how that goes. Going to be in the protocol this week, and so whether he is ready for week 11 remains to be seen. Sometimes a player is able to clear it within 1 week time, and sometimes they aren't. So if he is out, well, that doesn't really give a big bump to anybody else in the Eagles, because they don't have Zach Ertz anymore, and there's no other tight end that's really worth picking up. You might want to look on waivers at a guy like Cole Kmet, who was off this week. He was probably dropped in some leagues. He's been coming on. He's seeing his target share rise each and every week, and I really like the fact that he and Justin Fields were able to connect back in week 9. So Cole Kmet is definitely someone to keep an eye on to replace Dallas Goedert if needed. But again, if Goedert is okay, he could still play in week 11. You just have to kind of check in by Friday to see his condition. Ricky Seals-Jones has been a nice fill-in in Washington in place of Logan Thomas. Well, he left with a hip injury, and Logan Thomas, though he didn't play, he was designated to return from IR. He was feeling a little sore in practice, which is not a good sign. Possible that Logan Thomas does play next week. So if Thomas wasn't stashed, or maybe he was dropped, that's definitely a guy that you want to pick up. We saw what he could do last year. If he stays healthy, and especially now if Seals-Jones is hurt, this is somebody who you can set and forget at tight end the rest of the season. So look for Thomas wherever possible, or try to throw out a buy low offer for someone who has been stashing him but doesn't necessarily need him. All right, and then thankfully we didn't have too many wide receiver injuries of the series variety this past week. But let me talk about a couple of guys who didn't even play in week 10, but to remind you of their status. So Robert Woods, this was a very late week injury. Didn't even get to talk about it last week because it happened in practice. You've heard all this before, of course, Odell Beckham going to the Rams, but just so happens that Robert Woods tears his ACL, sadly, on Friday, right after the Odell Beckham signing. I guess its timing kind of works out, but it's still a tough blow for the Rams. So we'll see what happens. This is something that is going to impact Van Jefferson, though. We know Odell Beckham is going to take some time to work into the offense. We know now he obviously is someone that you can start going forward. Van Jefferson now retains value. We had seen that there was a big dip, after they signed Beckham. We thought, well, there goes that. But now all of a sudden, he becomes the guy that might be leaned on even more because, again, Beckham doesn't know this offense. He's not going to get a ton of targets as much as he wants to right away. Okay, so Van Jefferson, definitely worth scooping off of waivers. And Woods is out for the season, probably early portion of next season too, depending on recovery. He can definitely be dropped in redraft everywhere. And then Chase Claypool, we know he missed this past week. He's considered week to week, so don't guarantee that he's going to be playing in week 11. Now, interesting that in Pittsburgh, of course, we don't know exactly what would happen because Ben Roethlisberger didn't play. Mason Rudolph took his place, and it didn't look very good. But the thing is, we thought this might be good for James Washington, get a chance, with Juju out for the year and Claypool now out, Washington will get a chance to shine. Mason Rudolph starting kind of killed some of that buzz for me, but James Washington still scored a touchdown. We'll see what happens, but at the very least, we know that he's somebody who can make that big play. He's someone that if Claypool is out again, maybe this next week, assuming Roethlisberger does play, that you might want to take a shot on. So it's also worth noting that Ray McCloud is mostly a special teams guy and a returner, but he got, I think it was 9 catches on the day. Now, they're all it's a very Juju-esque game for him because he didn't get a lot of yards. They're all kind of around the line of scrimmage. But these short passes, they add up. Get a guy who gets a ton of catches, and then you have at least a double-digit floor there for PPR leagues. So keep your eye on McCloud. If he's going to be used that way going forward, he will have some value, at least in deep PPR leagues. Hopefully this helped you guys. We appreciate all your support. Consider hitting like and subscribe, and we'll be back with more content to help you all week long.